Good morning, comrades, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the amazing workshop of my dear neighbor Philip. And today we are going to tell you what you should and what you should not do in case you decide to take your car on the track, and basically how to prevent from this becoming something like that over there. Basically, the season is about to start. And after a hibernation period, your car probably needs some extra love, or in general, if you are coming to the track and want to do some track driving yourself for the first time, there are lots of important things, actually lots of minor things, but if you will not take care of them, they're going to have huge disastrous consequences. So, Philip, take it away.
Hello together, welcome again. Today I'm going to show you a few bits and pieces that should be checked, need to be checked, and should be replaced also before you come to the Nürburgring, instead of have a bad awakening when it comes to like a damage, a crash, and some massive costs due to barrier and bonnet fees.
So basically also any other track in the world, but since this channel is Nürburgring related and we're at the Nürburgring, we want to prevent that people will end up at your place because you're probably number one emergency mechanic, because you're like 200 meters away from a track entry, so a lot of people end up at your place. And so by this video, we're going to take away lots of profit from you.
Actually, I'm very close to the entry, so yeah, most of the cars just come down the driveway.
Yeah, but anyway.
It all depends on maintenance. If you've got the car stored during the winter period and you take it out of the garage after 5 months on -5 to +5 degrees, there's going to be some work to do on the car. And even if you've got a car like this, which is built in 1995, and you're going to end up in driving it, using it, abusing it maybe, you're going to be at the point where you need to replace some bits and pieces, even if they still look good. That's, for example, one of the best cars to show, because I just spent a lot of work on that car due to like broken vacuum lines which needed replacement, like used chain tensioners, spark plugs, oils, and all of that, which is sometimes not always in people's mind. This one, for example, had a broken radiator, which was like slightly dented underneath, and before it fails on track, we're going to put a proper aluminium radiator in, replace it, new coolant. We did spark plugs, we did all the fluids, brake fluids, spark plugs, throttle potentiometers, water hoses. We replaced just everything due to the fact that this car is usually used on the track, not on the road. And if you've got a failure on a water pipe, for example, that's going to end up in like losing fluids on the track. You might spin the car, you might crash into the barrier, but worst case, what about third-party problems? Yep. There's going to be fluid on the track, there's a motorbike behind you, he's going to slip on the fluid, and then he's going to crash into the barrier. That's going to be your problem, especially if you don't have track insurance. That's going to be the biggest problem you can imagine. And a new radiator, all the water hoses, new fluid, new water pump, that's about 400 to 450 euros. If we think about the money we spent during the year or on our trips, these 450 to 500 euros on maintenance are like nothing.
Yeah, if you compare, because again, for people who do not know, most of the people, except for German, registered cars, most of them, they are not covered by the insurance. If you're from UK, and large part of my audience is from UK, who are coming to the Nürburgring for their trips, if you're gonna have an accident, forget about it, because you're just simply not covered, and you're gonna have to pay for the fees for your own car, obviously, but most importantly, for the fees of a barrier, or recovering fees, and finally, like Philip explained, if someone crashes behind you because of you, because you spilled the coolant, you're going to be held accountable, and this can end up into lots of money. So you can either rent a car, hit me up, or you can make sure that your car is prepared properly.
Hit me up.
Yes.
No, but it's important, like I've seen it last year pretty often that cars just break down on the track. It's not just crashing on the track, it's even breaking down on the track. If you think about saving all your money during the year, do a 3-week trip to the Nürburgring with a group of friends, and it's the second day that you're here where you're gonna fuck the car up. And that's gonna be the issue, that you need to spend like pretty much money, or even more money that you already planned in for the trip, just to get your car fixed again to take it back home. And you're gonna lose track time, you're gonna yeah, you won't even enjoy the trip anymore due to the fact that the car is broken. So spend a little bit of time and awareness up front and just figure out that the car is sorted for the upcoming season.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so by now, hopefully people should understand that the importance of it, why you should do it. But now, what should you actually do?
What should you actually do? Yeah. First thing is, like, as soon as you get the car out of like hibernation after the winter, change all the fluids. Get some new engine oil, get a new engine oil filter, get some new brake fluid, get some proper brake fluid, especially when you're planning to take the car out on the Nürburgring, whatever circuit all over the world. Get some good brake fluid, get some racing brake fluid. Think about changing spark plugs, drive belt, water pump. Maybe depending the age of the car, like check things like radiators, water hoses. Pretty common fault over here, power steering hoses. People are not aware that even they might get into an age where they might burst and there's loads of force on it. Then we're going to go further on and get the car into the air and check a few other things. Like, that always depends if you've got access to a ramp. If you don't have, get a trustworthy mechanic to put the car on the ramp, even to check your car, or get it on the ramp and check it yourself.
Well, I guess the tread wear of the tires and the brake pads, it speaks for itself. But still, some people forget about it.
Yeah, that should be in people's mind that if a tire looks like this, that's still gonna be fine. But what about brake pads, for example? This one is like, yeah, okay, that's the best example. It's got brand new discs and brand new pads on it. It's got freshly rebuilt calipers on. It's got new wheel bearings on. The suspension has been rebuilt last week. So this is like actually completely prepped for the new season. Mm-hmm. But even if you plan to come to the Nürburgring, don't buy cheap pads for like £20 or €40 somewhere. Get some proper stuff, because you're not just playing with your car and your money, you're playing with your life. And there's not more that keeps you on the track instead of brakes and tires.
True. Absolutely. Regarding tires, it's not only about actually the tread wear that's left on it, but also the tire pressure that you need to run.
It's the tire pressure that you need to check, especially when you go out on the track, that it's enough pressure. If you're running 1.6 bar or like 18, 19 PSI, you're going to struggle, that you're going to destroy the sidewalls of the tire before you even get out of the first lap.
Mm-hmm. And after that, when the pressure rises, the tire can explode because the rim cut. Exactly,
because you're gonna damage it here with the less pressure driving, and then it's gonna be as soon as you get more pressure and it's gonna expand. And if you hit a curb then or something like this, it might be a tire failure. That's what people should be aware of. And it's also brake pads. If you've got new pads on, bed them in properly. Buy some proper track pads. Don't buy any cheap stuff or like go, oh, that will still last. If you've got 2.5 millimeters left and you're coming to the Nürburgring and you're planning a week of track driving, spend that little bit of extra money and get some good pads and get some new pads on. You can still keep the old pads as a backup set if necessary, but also with the brake fluid, get some racing brake fluid. We're talking about 2 to 3 times the temperatures on the brake system, caliper, disc, compared to road use. So rather spend a bit of extra money on proper track related stuff if you're planning to come over, instead of having a bad weekend.
But actually the prices are also not that crazy if you compare it to like the street stuff.
No, if you take genuine BMW road brake pads, for example, we're talking about €229 for the set of front pads. Mm-hmm. If you get like a proper Hawk HT10 set of pads, for example, we're talking about €295. Yeah, so these additional €70 don't. It's
25% maximum difference. Because unfortunately, some people think when you talk about like racing brake pads, you're thinking Endless as a brand, which is like €1,000.
Yeah, okay.
And they're like, I'm not going to spend that amount of money. But there's a lot of in-between solutions that you can get that can save you. Okay, the car is going further up. What's underneath that people need to really take care of?
What's underneath? Like this, for example, we've got some nearly brand new wishbones. What you need to check is always that you don't have any play in the wishbones, in the anti-roll bar, in the steering rods. Check all these bits and pieces. Check the power steering pipes, like they are pressed together over here. Check it that it's not leaking, that it's not loose, that even the power steering cooling looks intact. Check that the drive belts are fine, that there's no wear on the belts and they don't snap. Because even if the belt snaps on the track, you might lose your power steering, you might lose the water pump, you might lose your alternator. And then it's going to be the problem if this happens, like in carousel, for example, and you turn into carousel, and then you're going to lose the power steering and the water pump. That might be dangerous because you're going to run out of carousel into the next barrier. Check that everything is tight, that there's nothing loose underneath, like the inner wheel arches or stuff like this. Tighten it up so that you're always like safe to go out on track.
Additional brake cooling, but that's probably like a next level thing that people could install. But
yeah, it's not necessary, but if you go on track pretty much and often, you should prepare the car with additional brake cooling. You should think about like engine cooling ducts if necessary to get all the hot air out of the engine bay. But that's more track car related.
Yeah, that's more next level, not the beginner stuff.
Not the usual level. Yeah. Even on the rear, it's the same. Like check the brake lines, check the differential that it's not leaking. If you use your car pretty often on track, you should do like a spanner check before the season. Tighten all the bolts up and do it like we do it over here. Put a paint mark on it, and as soon as it might come undone, you can always realize like, oh, that paint spot has moved somewhere else, so it must be loose. Everything else is like, check that everything is tight, like the exhaust, and that there's no big wear or like any damage on the rubber boots of the drive shaft, front wheel, rear wheel drives, it's all the same. Check that there's like nothing leaking, the dampers are fine. If you're not sure about it, but then we're still up to next level. Get them rebuilt, but that's more, next level cars.
Yeah. Okay, what are the biggest mistakes that people do?
The biggest mistakes that people do due to maintenance is like they wait way too long. Mm-hmm. Instead of spending a bit of money before the season, they're gonna go like, yeah, that'll be fine till end of the year, so I'm gonna save some money. And if you calculate it and you take it to the numbers, for example, we could go here and you spend some maintenance. You've got oil, you've got brakes, you've got tires. That's all together going to be like, if you get an oil change, spark plugs, brakes, brake fluid, tires, that's going to be like 1,500 euros, for example. If you take the other side, that's going to be like, we're going to take the brake down, that's going to be 400 euros, bongoed.
Which is recovery fee for people who do not speak Nürburg language.
Then it's going to be like, if you've got an engine problem, that's going to be like an unaware amount of money. Yeah. But if it's due to the brakes, that's going to be bongoed that recovers you off the track, so you crash the car. That's going to be like a wing, a bonnet, a bumper. That's going to be 1,000 euros to fix the car again. Then you've got the next problem that the trip is ruined. Yeah. So
you need to find a pickup.
You need to find a pickup, recovery back to the UK, for example. That's something around about 700 euros. And then you already spent like 1,500 euros for the trip, the hotel and everything. And the disappointment is like a number that you can't even pay with your MasterCard.
Yeah, and we didn't even actually count the barrier fees and third party that we mentioned about.
Exactly.
And obviously, this can go astronomically high if you just total your car. It depends on the value of the car.
Yeah, it always depends on what happens. If it's just a water pump or a wishbone and you hit the barrier, we talk about 1,000 euros. But that can go up to 25,000 euros without any issues.
Yeah.
But all over, if you compare the numbers, that's going to be like beginning of the season, and that's going to be like maintenance for nearly the whole season. Mm-hmm. And this is just for a single event, and we're already talking about 2,100 euros.
Yeah. Now, obviously, this includes if you want to have brand new tires in terms of, or if you need brand new tires or brand new brakes.
If you replace the tires
for
or
like semi-slicks,
then,
but actually the basic maintenance starts like around 400 to 500 euros. Yeah. It's if it even needed. And obviously, if you do it on time, then you don't have to repeat it all the time.
It might go up to 1,000 euros, but then you've got replaced your radiator, your brake lines. People should be aware of brake lines. Everything that's out of rubber is like related to an aging process. And if it heats up and cools down and heats up and cools down, the aging process is like rapidly fast. And that's going to be the problem why a water pipe might burst. Mm-hmm. And that's what people forget about. So rather spend a bit of money on pre-season maintenance instead of
Yeah,
spending
absolutely.
big money on.
The biggest issue that we have here when people like miss out on maintenance, they sometimes they buy like a shitbox car. Could be an E36 in a very bad condition, 318 or 316, or maybe like some old Civic. Just like speaking of some stereotypes, and then they think, why should I spend like more money on a car that costs me like even 1/3, sometimes like 500 euros, and do that? Well, because you are going to avoid this, and trust me, we've seen it happen. We see it happen every weekend that it happens. So don't be one of those guys.
You can see it in so many crash videos that people, it's not even the lack of talent, which is like, yeah, if you want to prove something to someone that you can't prove because you don't have the skills. But it's like, if you spin on your own coolant, we've got coolant spills last year like pretty often due to the fact of bad maintenance. It's like, that happens very often.
It happens. Good. Well, I hope we have convinced people to think twice and prepare twice before coming to either Nürburgring or any track around, to make sure that your car is always checked up. We'll probably make like a second video where we talk maybe about advanced preparations for a car when you like already, well, like we made an example of brake duct coolant or yeah.
Yeah, if you've got some proper suspension on, like adjustable track suspension and bigger brakes and...
Absolutely, we can talk about that. But first of all, if people would like to have their car checked by like Nürburgring mechanic professional, could they like contact you and...
Yeah, without any issues. Just send me an email or contact me through Facebook, or even if you're in the area already, like March or April when the track will be open, just come round and we'll check the car. That shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, what's a checkup cost? Just looking.
Checkup cost is like, we can do like a proper track car checkup, which is a 100 spot list where we've got like 100 things to tick up. Otherwise, it's just put it on the ramp and check it. That's going to be like about 20 to 25 euros to be 100% sure that everything is fine on the car to take it out on the track.
Well, that's less than a lap ticket price. So that's great.
I'd rather spend one lap less.
Yeah. Than not. Yeah.
Spending a fortune of money.
Absolutely. Well, guys, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, I hope most importantly, it doesn't matter if you didn't enjoy it, if you didn't like my face or his face or whatever. Most importantly, I hope it will get you prepared for the season. Don't be one of those guys. Don't end up on one of those crash channels. And we very much looking forward to see you at the Nürburgring. Shoot us a message. Him for maintenance. Yeah, and me for hotel. You can stay at our place across the road and get your car checked up here. And after that, we do a photo session. Anyway, you know how it works. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
See you later.